Yeah.
One last question. Relations with Latin America and the United States have deteriorated in the last 8 years.
Uh-huh.
What do you think are the challenges that Obama is going to face in the fact that he wants to review NAFTA, he doesn't want to pass a free trade agreement with Colombia, which is the only ally with the United States in this moment. The fact that Bolivia has expelled the DEA from Bolivia, their American ambassador, and Venezuela has done the same thing, and Nicaragua might follow suit.
A question of what sort of policies I think might help U.S. relations with...
In terms of the economy, because the trade
Okay.
agreement is going to affect
Okay.
other policies with the DEA, drug enforcement agencies.
Okay. The question is of U.S. relations with Latin America, mentioning some of the problems with Bolivia, Venezuela, and others. The first and easiest step is to end the drug war here. To simply end the drug war and stop causing civil war in parts of South America. I mean, northern South America, there's been horrendous carnage there, partly because of the DEA aid, because of American mandates. It certainly hasn't ended the demand for heroin, cocaine, or other products. And we should admit that the drug war failed and just move on to something else. I think that'd be a wonderful goodwill gesture that would make a much bigger impact on Latin America than simply cutting the tariffs on bananas. So, but I'm in favor of free trade, and I would hope Obama. It's hard to know what Obama believes because he said a lot of different things at different times. But hopefully, once he's president, he'll have a better attitude. He'll be less protectionist in his policies than he was in some of his rhetoric. Though there's a lot of danger in managed trade. And that's something which causes its own dislocations. So, yeah.
Honestly, what would you like us to do when we leave this room? Because we've already stated the problem. I think we're under the consensus that we really don't really need to be here to understand the problem. We can turn on television at home. We can read the newspaper. And you've already stated that our voice is not being heard by our legislators, etc. So what do you want us to take away from this? What can we do as citizens of the United States to, I guess, fix our economic state and our political state at large?
Okay. Were people able to hear that? No. Okay. It was a question. What is it I want people to take away from this? What is it I want people to do? The questioner said that basically that they already know a lot of the information. They can turn on TV or read a newspaper or whatever. Part of the trouble is that most of this kind of information is not in the newspapers. It's not in the vast, this is not stuff you're going to see in the Washington Post in which someone lays out that the government has not only lied, but it's been lying consistently for decade after decade, and that a lot of the fundamental interventions have been not only debacles, but profoundly deceptive. As far as what people can do, people need to get better informed. That's a way kind of to build a counterweight to both the politicians and the media. People need to speak out. An example, a lot of Americans don't realize, for instance, if you're walking down the street and a policeman comes up and asks to search you, you don't have to let them do that. I mean, it's frustrating that so many Americans are so either ignorant or non-assertive on their rights that cops can come up and just search almost anybody that they please. I mean, 200 years ago, cops that tried to do that would probably get something broken over their head, except there were hardly any cops back then because people took care of the law themselves, partly because there were very few laws. Nowadays, we've got over 4,000 criminal laws, federal criminal laws. So, and it's like daily life is like going through a minefield. I mean, if I'm driving home tonight and I forget to put on my seatbelt, boom, I'm pulled over. And if I get in an argument with the cop, I'm arrested. For what? Because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. I mean, it's the same, but there are so many different levels of that. People need to have, part of the thing I want people to take away, I guess, is to realize some of the trend lines. And things have not been good, things have gotten worse, but things could get far more worse. government could become far more authoritarian in this country, because one of the lessons of the Bush administration is there was very little pushback, very little resistance when Bush announced doctrines that scorned the Constitution. Back in November 2001, Bush announced that he, on his own authority, he could label any person in the world as an enemy combatant and have them detained indefinitely, simply because he was commander-in-chief. Well, you know, this wasn't part of the Constitution. It was completely contrary to what Americans had stood for almost the entire country history. And yet, you had the president come out and say this. There was a handful of complaints in the media, but there was very little profound objection to it. Likewise with the torture scandal. I mean, it's not simply a question of the U.S. government torturing taxi drivers to death at Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. The same type of precedents are being set that will influence how the U.S. government treats Americans here. We already saw that with the Jose Padilla case. And again, there's a complacency, not necessarily in this room, but in America in general. I saw it on Election Day. You had all these folks who seem to think that since Obama won, well, thank God the problem's solved. I guess we can go home and watch Oprah, you know. But that was only the first part of standing up for your rights. And it was a very paltry choice on Election Day as far as the two major candidates. But that's how the major parties wanted it. So.
We have time for one more.
Okay, last question. Somebody new. Yeah, Ted.
Do you believe that voting at all lends credibility to the system and legitimacy, and that maybe even a vote for Bovard is still a vote for these politicians in general?
The question is whether I believe that voting adds legitimacy to the system, and that even a vote for Bovard would be a vote for the system as it is. You know, that's a coin toss. There have been elections where I didn't bother voting, basically because it's kind of like, you know, there was nothing that I wanted to register either a vote for or against. Sometimes it's fun to go out to vote against the bond referendums. But there is, you know, that's kind of a catch-22. It would be different if more people interpreted a non-vote as a vote against the system. But that's not how it's perceived or understood. But basically, you know, Americans need to find better ways to stand up for their rights and liberties. That's the bottom line. That's something I've been trying to understand better myself for a long time. And, you know, people ask me questions like some of the questions here, and sometimes I'm not that happy with my answers either. But people need to keep working and looking, and maybe at some point there will be a way to wake up more Americans to the peril that their own government is posing to them. So, on that note, we'll draw the curtain.